Hello and welcome to my final presentation in our Communication 1101 class. Today I am going to be going over binge drinking. Before I do that, first and foremost, I hope everyone is staying safe, is staying inside, and doing their absolute best to make the best out of a bad situation. That being said, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, I think binge drinking is a really interesting topic that I came across when I was trying to decide what I was going to do this speech on. And as it turns out, I'm really glad that I picked it because I think there needs to be more awareness on this subject, as well as an acknowledgement that what we're doing is not okay as a nation. And the reason I say that is 44%, yes, 44% of college students are currently binge drinking at least multiple times a month. Now, this doesn't sound that bad, and when I first started to research this, I'll be honest, I didn't think it was as dangerous or as serious as you'll soon come to find out, but it is. And this is why this topic is so important, and I'm glad that I picked it. Another thing, obviously, for those of you who don't know, binge drinking is defined as a heavy bout of drinking. In other words, when you take down a lot of alcohol consumption at one time and don't spread it out over a long period of time. This occurs twice as much in males as it does with females. Not particularly surprising based on the fact that males are obviously heavier in weight and therefore probably need to drink twice as much just to feel drunk, but still an interesting statistic nonetheless. It actually occurs at one out of three drinking events. So any drinking event, we're not talking about tailgates or where it usually happens, we're talking about any drinking event, someone is binge drinking. And no one really seems to be bothered by it or to mention it, but it's definitely something that is in our society constantly and something we've kind of learned to accept for some reason. So moving on, where does binge drinking, take place? Binge drinking, usually, as you're well aware, occurs in college. So this is going to be tailgates. This is going to be frat parties or house parties for that matter. But what people aren't aware about is that in America specifically, this is occurring at a rapid rate with males, usually males, occurring all the way up to their 50s, where they're taking down this rapid amount of alcohol, and you're thinking, wait a minute, Carson, I thought binge drinking was something that happened because college kids didn't turn 21 yet and we're trying to force all the alcohol down. Well, turns out the research that I put into this does not show this to be true. It shows that, first of all, the reason it's dangerous is because this is our generation's version of drunk driving. And when I say our generation's version of drunk driving, you're probably sitting there and going, what are you talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is the fact that drunk driving 20 years ago was something that our parents could probably get away with and was not considered to be as serious of an offense or an action as we soon learned it was to be because of all the deaths and the statistics that we found out from them. Well, binge drinking is extremely similar in the fact that in 2020 specifically, we're finding out that a lot of people are not taking binge drinking seriously and don't realize the effects and the long-lasting effects that it can have on you. And this is why I believe this topic needs to be talked about more. Also, the fact that only young age range are affected. First of all, young age ranges will be affected because I think this is a gateway to alcoholism, and obviously there's going to be liver problems and a multitude of problems from heavy drinking. But it doesn't only affect younger generations, it also affects that older generation, and probably in a worse manner. You're more susceptible to diseases. You are probably going to show your kids a bad example and they could possibly become alcoholics, whether or not you want to hear that. There's a multitude of reasons why being older is actually you need to be more transparent on your drinking and make sure that you're doing it occasionally versus taking it all down at once like you're used to doing, because there's some really big effects that can happen with it. I found out this information from the article of Binge Drinking, an Exploration of Confused Concept. It was a great journal article from JSTOR, our library. Quickly, I do want to go back and just say drinking among high school students and adults. This is the article I found for the quick facts. I just want to make sure that I'm citing my sources properly. Now, common misconceptions. Only youth partake in these activities. 1 in 3 men at the age of 42 are currently involved in binge drinking on a consistent basis. That's a pretty crazy stat, and that shows how oblivious we are as a nation to this occurring. Another thing is that this is a new movement. This is not a new movement. The first time this was mentioned was in 1854, but it has been heavily researched and more accepted as something that happens in our society consistently around the 80s to 1990s. Another misconception is that it's not as dangerous as drunk driving. It is accounted for 80,000 deaths in America alone. Not to mention, it has taken away 2.3 possible years of life. In other words, you're shortening your lifespan by drinking that much. And that's what we really need to key in on, is the fact that drunk driving is bad, and we have done a good job of limiting it, and that is exactly what we need to do with binge drinking. Now, you're probably wondering, how exactly would you limit something that you can kind of easily do, and it doesn't seem like there's an easy way to stop it? Well, they actually have tried to stop it in the past. Many people believe they put these laws in effect to avoid drunk driving. And although this is very true, it needs to be said these laws were also put in for binge drinking, as they saw through statistics and research that it could become as big a problem as it is now in 2020. And that is why they changed the hours of the alcohol they sell. If you notice, ABC stores around us and alcohol shops definitely close up a lot earlier than they used to. They made the age of alcohol 21, obviously, so that you would have to be older to consume alcohol to begin with, and hopefully help that younger generation not get into alcohol as early as maybe our parents did. And finally, they put heavy taxes on the sales of alcohol, hoping that our parents would probably purchase less alcohol and provide a better example and not lead us down the same path they went down. But I honestly don't believe any of these really prevented a lot, considering in 2020 it's as big as it's ever been. And that's why I believe we need to put some new preventative measures in place to make sure that binge drinking takes a big halt from about 2020 to 2025, and our generation below me doesn't binge drink nearly as much as mine does. Now, my thoughts on this is, first and foremost, we need to just be more aware of binge drinking. Just like there's AA meetings for alcoholism, there needs to be AA meetings for binge drinking. There needs to be groups where you can talk about why you're consuming all this alcohol at once, and maybe therapy. Just a multitude of ways to get the awareness out there that this is happening at an alarming rate. And drunk driving is not the only thing with alcohol we need to worry about. On top of that, there needs to be new legislation passed about binge drinking, again, to get the awareness out there, but also to figure out ways to just prevent people from buying as much alcohol as they possibly can. I mean, I can go into a Harris Teeter right now and buy 10, 24 packs of beer, and no one's really going to question me or stop me. So it's just like, we need to look at that. And at the same time, I think the biggest thing we need to do is to change the age of purchasing alcohol back to 18. Now, I know you're thinking, why in the world would you do that? It would only make the problem worse. I actually believe, and a lot of research has shown, that through the age being changed to 21, by the time you get close to 21, you've been drinking for so long it feels normal, and you just go crazy when you turn 21 years old, which I did a week ago. And although I didn't follow that path, I believe many kids did. And I believe if you turned it to 18, there would be a real psyche change in the young adults and the young teens in America, where they would get used to alcohol at a younger age. Their parents wouldn't be as uptight about it, and it wouldn't feel like you're going against the grain, which is something at that age we all know you like to do. And I think that would actually be the most useful preventative measure. Now, for the past preventative measures, I do want to shout out the article, Can We Better Prevent Binge Drinking?, as this is where I got all my information on this slide. I hope you are doing extremely well. Like I said before, stay safe, and I hope after this slides and this presentation, you start to take binge drinking a little bit more seriously. I know I have, from all my research and looking at the statistics and how dangerous it is, and I hope you have a great day.